Okay, let's talk a little bit about position bugging. There's a couple of ways to do it. It's pretty easy. One way requires items, the other way does not require any items. With items, it's a little bit easier to do, but it's totally possible to just use with regular skills or whatever. It happens all the time on accident, but this is how you can do it on purpose. So basically, how it works is you can use an item like a magnifier, and what that does is kind of casts an ability that identifies an item in your inventory. But if you don't have any items in your inventory, then you don't have it won't do that, and it will just pretend to use the skill. So when you pretend to use the skill, it stops your character's location from moving. It stops your momentum. It doesn't stop your sprite from walking to your targeted position. So basically, how it'll work is just hit Q, or I'll hit Q for the or I'll click, then I'll hit Q, and that will keep my character's position here, but it will move my sprite around the corner. So I'll just go click over there, hit Q, and it looks like I'm over here, but if I click back over here, you'll see my character rubber band back to where his original position was. That's where I used the magnifier. So it's pretty simple. You just, and it's really easy to get around corners. You can click around a corner, you just walk. So the benefit of this for certain characters like snipers or wizards or basically anything that casts an ability on the ground is you cast. It's kind of tricky. You can cast anywhere in your line of sight as long as it's within a certain number of tiles of your character's position. So that's why it's super effective on snipers, because they have a lot more range than other classes. So while the game thinks you're here, you can actually be standing over here and you can still shoot over here even though it's not in line of sight of this position over here. It's within the tile range of this position. So it's a little bit complicated, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward. If you have a line of sight, you can cast there as long as it's within your casting range. So you'll see us go back. And the other way you can do it is by casting a self-targeted ability. So for us, we're going to be using Shield Reflect. You can also use it with Shrink. There's not too many other ones that you can use on Paladin. If you have First Aid, we can try it with First Aid. So we'll just replace that there. So it's the same thing, and you might be able to hear with my keyboard clicks, but all you do is you just use the ability and then click again right after. So it's kind of like a spam click, and it's a little bit tricky to get, but I think we got it that time. Yeah, and you snap back. So it's a little bit more difficult, it's a little bit less reliable, but you just click, you use the ability and then click again, and you just snap to the, you just position bug yourself. So we can do that with First Aid, we can do that with Shield Reflect. It's a weird one. It's a little bit tricky. And snap back. And yeah, there's a lot of things. If I use guard and then use guard again, it's tricky as well, but because guard is harder because it stops your position already when you activate it, but when you deactivate it, it's a little bit easier. But if I activate guard, I can use Shrink, and that works just as well. Other classes you can do this on, basically anything that you can do a self-targeted ability. So that would be like Crazy Uproar. Oh, what else? Improve Concentration works pretty well. I think that's pretty, I mean, there's a lot. You can look at a class, anything that's self-targeted that casts instantly, like a buff. You can just go ahead and spam click and use the ability. If you're not, you can spam the ability twice if you want, if it makes you feel better. It makes it a little bit easier, because then you're just kind of spamming buttons. Or you can just use a magnifier. They weigh about 5, so it's a little bit heavy, but if you can use the extra weight, then go for it. So yeah, magnifier, just click use the magnifier, and boom, you're back there. See how far we can go with it. A little out of range. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but overall it's very easy. So that's how you position bug, and I don't know, it's kind of useful in WoW. It's not so useful in PVM because monsters know where you are anyway, but yeah, in WoW, players can't target you. You can cast skills around walls. It's like, why not? But yeah, that's how to position bug.